create data-driven graphics. Create data-driven graphics. So what about create data-driven graphics? Data-driven graphics make it possible, by the way, to produce multiple versions of an image quickly and accurately for print or web projects. For example, you can produce 100 versions, by the way, of a web panel with different text and images, and all based on a template design, by the way. And you should follow these general steps to create graphics from templates and datasets. You should create the base graphic to use as the template, and you can use layers to separate the elements that you want to change in the graphic. After that, define variables in the graphic. By the way, variables specify the parts of the image that change, and create or import the datasets. Create and import the datasets. You can also create the datasets in the template or import them from a text file. And preview the document with each dataset. To see how your final graphics will look, you can preview before you export all the files, by the way. And generate your graphics by exporting them with the data. By the way, you can export them as Photoshop PSD files, like the next image and next screenshot. We have A and B and C. And creating this screenshot explain for you how to create different versions of an image using variables. A is meaning source file template, and B is meaning user defines layer as variables, and C is meaning different versions of the image can be created, by the way, and each with a different variables dataset. And what about define variables? By the way, you can use variables to define which elements in a template change. And you can define 3 types, by the way, of variables. And visibility variables show or hide the content of a layer. And pixel replacement variables replace, by the way, the pixels in the layer with pixels from another image file. Like text replacement variables replace a string of text in a type layer, by the way. And do not here and be careful. Go live recognizes all text and visibility variables, but not pixel replacement variables. Like the next screenshot. This image now explains for you 2 versions of an image based on the same template, and A is meaning visibility variable, and B pixel replacement variable, and C text replacement variables. And by the way, you can define variables for the background layer. We have steps again. Step number 1, you should choose image firstly, then you choose variables, then you choose define. Number 2, you should select a layer from the layer pop-up menu, and this contains the content you want to define as a variable. Step number 3, you should select one or more types of variables. We have 3 types. The first type, visibility. Visibility is meaning shows or hides the content of the layer. And the second type, pixel replacement, is meaning replaces the pixels in the layer with pixels from another image file. And the third type, text replacement, is meaning replaces a string of text in a type layer. Step number 4. Do one of the following. You should choose name and enter a name for the variable, and variable's name must begin with a letter and underscore or colon and cannot contain, by the way, spaces or special characters, and except for periods and hyphens and underscores and colons. And you can choose an existing variable, by the way, from the name pop-up menu to link this layer to layers linked to the same variable, and are shown next to the name menu along with the link icon. Step number 5. For pixel replacement variables. Set the following options. You should choose a method for scaling the replacement image firstly, and if it scales the image so that it fits in the bounding box, which may that leave parts of the bounding box empty, and fill scales the image so that it fills the bounding box entirely, and which may cause the image to extend beyond the bounding box, as it applies no scaling by the way to the image and conform scales the image non-proportionally, so that it fits in the bounding box by the way. After that, the next, you should click a handle on the alignment icon to choose an alignment for placing the image inside the bounding box. This option, by the way, is not available for conform. And after that, you should select clip to bounding box to clip areas of the image that don't fit in the bounding box. This option, by the way, is available only when the fill or as is replacement method is selected. This option, by the way, is not available for conform. Step number 6. To define variables for another layer, you should choose a layer from the layer pop-up menu, and asterisk appears. The asterisk appears next to the name of a layer that contains variables, by the way. And also you can use the navigation rows to move between layers. Step number 7. Number 7, click OK to finalize. How to rename a variable? How to rename a variable? We have 4 steps. If you would like to rename a variable, we have 4 steps here now. Step number 1. You should choose image, then you choose variables, then you choose define. Step number 2. Choose the layer that contains the variable from the layer pop-up menu. Step number 3. To rename the variable, enter a name in the name text box, and variables names must begin with a letter and underscore and colon and cannot contain spaces or special characters, by the way. Except for periods and hyphens and underscores and colons. Step number 4. To remove the variable, deselect it. How to define a dataset? How to define a dataset? By the way, a dataset is a collection of variables and associated data, and you can define a dataset for each version, by the way, of the graphic that you want to generate. And we have steps. Step number 1. You should choose image firstly, then select variables, then select datasets. And if the variables dialog box is open, you should choose datasets from the pop-up menu at the top of the dialog box. Or you should click next. Note and be careful. Take care. You must define at least 1 variable, by the way, before you can edit the default dataset. Step number 2. Click the new data set button. Step number 3. Select a variable from the name pop-up menu or the list at the bottom of the dialog box. Step number 4. Edit the variable data. And for visibility, variables select visible to show the layer's content or invisible to hide the layer's content. For pixel replacement variables, you should click select file and select a replacement image file, by the way, and then click don't replace before the dataset is applied to leave the layer in its current state. Note here again. Note here and be careful. Don't replace doesn't reset the file to its original state if another replacement has been applied previously. And for text replacement variables, you should enter a text firstly, string in the value text box. Step number 5. To define additional data sets for each version of the graphic you want to generate, define additional data sets for each version of the graphic you want to generate. And by the way, you can edit and rename or delete the dataset later by first choosing it from the dataset pop-up menu and editing its options. And you can use also the arrow icons to move between datasets, and then click the delete icon to delete a dataset. What about preview or apply a dataset? How to preview or apply a dataset? By the way, you can apply a dataset's contents to the base image, by the way, while leaving all the variables and datasets intact. This changes, by the way, the look of the PSD document to contain the values of the dataset, and you can also preview how each version of your graphic will look with each dataset. Note here again, applying a dataset overwrites your original document. You should choose image firstly, then select apply dataset, then select the dataset from the list and preview the image in the document window. and to apply the dataset, you should to click apply firstly, then click cancel if you are previewing and don't want to change the base image. And by the way, you can also apply and preview a dataset in the dataset page of the variables dialog box. How to generate graphics using datasets. How to generate graphics using datasets. By the way, after you define variables and one or more datasets, you can also you can output in batch mode images using the dataset values, and you can also output images as BSD files. We have 5 steps. Step number 1: choose file, then select export, then choose datasets as files. Step number 2: enter a base name for all files generated, and you may create your own file by the way naming scheme if you want. Step number 3: you should click the select folder button to select a destination directory for your files. Step number 4: choose datasets to export. Step number 5: click OK to execute. Creating datasets in external files. How to create datasets in external files? By the way, you can quickly create a large number of datasets by creating an external text file that contains all the variable information and loading that file into a BSD document containing variables. And one method, by the way, is to enter your data into a text file or Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and then export it to a tab or comma separated file. And the syntax of the external text file is as follows. And where each line that starts with a variable or value is an entire, by the way, line by itself in your file, like the next command now. And all the variable, by the way, all the variable names are listed on the first line, by the way, in the order that the values are given in subsequent lines, and each subsequent line represents one dataset with the values for each variable given. And by the way, to create multiple lines of text in a single line of text in a dataset, you should include the text in double quotes and insert hard returns in the tab or comma separated file where you want the break to occur, like the next command again. Look at this command now. External text file syntax elements. True and false. Load values for a visibility variable, and spaces around the delimiter are removed, by the way, when passing the file between words in a value string. And two of a kind spaces are maintained, and leading and trailing spaces are maintained if enclosed in double quotation marks. And after that, double quotes, by the way, can be part of a value if preceded by another double quote, like the next word. If we have if SEP or NO is part, by the way, of the variable value, then the entire value must be enclosed in double quotation, and all variables defined in the BSD document must be defined in the text file. By the way, an error is displayed if the number of variables in the text file doesn't match the number in the document, like the next example. Using a template for flowers that holds variables. For tulip and sunflower, you can set up a text file that looks like this, like the next comment. And do not please here now. By the way, you can use a relative path for the image location if the text file is in the same folder as the image file. For example, the last item in the example can be true violet and violet.jpg. Import a dataset. How to import dataset? How to import a dataset? We have steps. Step number 1: you should choose import firstly. Choose file, then choose import, then choose variable datasets, then choose image, then choose variables, or choose datasets and click the import button. Step number 2: navigate to the text file to import. Navigate to the text file to import. Step number 3: set up your import options. Set up your import options. And we have two options here now. First option, use first column for datasets names. It's meaning that names each dataset using the content of the first column of the text file and the values for the first variable listed. Otherwise, the datasets are named by the way dataset 1 and dataset 2 and so on. And what about replace existing datasets? Replace existing datasets is meaning that deletes any existing datasets before importing. Step number 4. Set the encoding of the text file or leave the setting automatic. Set the encoding of the text file or leave the setting automatic. Step number 5. Click OK to execute.